Exposed. How I turned a 10M contract clause into an amazing triumph after HR's surprising attack. Jake stepped through the glass doors of Stratagem Designs, feeling the weight of uncounted ambitions pressing down on him. At 38, he was in the prime of his career, yet he felt trapped, suffocated under the brutal reality of corporate America. Inside the sharp lines of cubicles and the sterile glow of overhead lights, raw talent often succumbed to the rule of nepotism. Every day he put his heart into breathtaking designs, but recognition danced just out of reach. The routines of morning meetings felt like a cage. Each day he'd hear praises for the lifeless sketches of his colleagues, while his own masterpieces faded into the shadows. There was the name power game, a cruel hierarchy where loyalty triumphed over merit. Jake was just a faceless cog, battling self-doubt and frustration, knowing his family, lovely Sarah, a tireless nurse, and their two spirited kids depended on him. With their hopes resting on his shoulders, he fought a war that felt increasingly futile. Then came whispers from HR, rumors that spread like wildfire. Just a matter of time, they said. Staring into space during another pointless briefing, all Jake could feel was the ground beneath him crumbling. A $10 million contract that would have defined his career hung in the balance. Unshakable uncertainty loomed over him, threatening to unravel the very fabric of his life. Memories of family dinners with laughter and warmth enveloping them felt like echoes from a past he feared he'd never revisit. Paralyzing insecurity gnawed at him. Had he failed his family? Could he still be the husband and father they relied on him to be? Amid sleepless nights and mounting pressure, a glimmer of hope sparked when Jake crossed paths with Charles, a retired architect. At first glance, the weathered face of the elder man radiated a gravitas cultivated through years of trial and error. Their conversations unfolded like intricate blueprints, revealing insights Jake had long been searching for. When Charles spoke of hidden clauses buried in legal jargon, something ignited within him. It was a lifeline, a way to claw back the power he had lost. Diving into Charles's mentorship, Jake felt a flicker of determination. Yet, just when he began to reclaim his agency, betrayal struck like thunder. A trusted colleague, someone he confided in, shattered his fragile trust. Anger surged within him. Isolation loomed large. Who could he look to for support when even allies turned on him? Thoughts tumbled in his mind, racing faster than his breath could keep up. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. As tension mounted, Jake faced a dark choice. Should he confront the system that perpetuated unfairness, risking his family's stability? Or should he shield them from the turmoil swirling within his career? Jake was at a precipice, the sharp edge of his decision sharp enough to cut. In that moment, dread wrapped around him like a vice. Every choice pressed against him. The road ahead now uncertain and twisted. Would he expose the rot festering at the core of Stratagem Designs, or let it consume him? The stakes had never been higher, casting a shadow over everything he cherished. The future hung suspended, and Jake stood teetering on a knife's edge, his pulse quickening at the urgency of the unfolding crisis. As he prepared to take a stand, the clarity he craved became increasingly elusive, leaving him spiraling into an abyss. The fight felt monumental, and with every tick of the clock, everything seemed to change. The morning sun filtered weakly through the blinds, casting sharp lines of light that only served to emphasize the dimness left by recent betrayals. Jake sat at his desk, fingers hovering above the keyboard as doubt pulsated through him. The desire to confront the corruption around him warred with the instinct to bunker down, to protect his family from the storm stirring on the horizon. He recalled the conversations with Charles, the quiet urgency in the elder architect's voice. The only way to navigate the labyrinth is to understand its design, Charles had said. The wisdom lingered like a ghost in the back of his mind. So much lay hidden beneath the surface, and Jake's heart raced with a mixture of fear and exhilaration. He could no longer be the passive observer, the artist languishing under obscurity. Digging deep, Jake resolved to examine the contract details he'd come across earlier. What if the whispers within HR were true? What if, in the intricate web of clauses and stipulations, lay an opportunity that could alter the course of his career? He needed to discover precisely what fueled the corporate machine that had stifled his talents for too long. This search for knowledge felt like a kickstart to his battered spirit. Arming himself with a fresh notebook and an intense will, he began to dissect every inch of the contract. Page by page, he laid bare the truths hidden in plain sight, the technicalities, the loopholes, the language vagaries. As he scratched out his thoughts, a clarity began to wash over him. Knowledge is power, and for the first time, he felt like he could wield that power against the corporate hierarchy that had silenced him. And the quiet moments of his office, Jake could break down his own barriers just by writing. Ideas were assaulted by self-doubts that lingered. Yet he pushed through, scribbling and erasing, constructing plans to confront his fears. He had stayed silent for too long. This was about more than the contract. It was about reclaiming his identity as a designer, as a man capable of achieving greatness. But the shadows from his colleagues' betrayal were persistent, tugging at his resolve. Just then, an unexpected message flickered on his screen. It was from Maya, an old friend and a recent hire in the marketing department. Their paths had diverged, but her words had a warmth that felt like a reprieve from the frigid atmosphere of his workplace. She complimented a recent project but included a provocative notion. How much longer do you intend to let them take away your shine? Show them who you really are. Those words struck a chord within him, reverberating through his tumultuous thoughts. Was he truly ready to step into the light? To expose not just the corruption around him but his own potential? The answer ignited something fierce within him. Taking a deep breath, he put down the notebook and began crafting a plan. He would need allies, tactical ones, people who had not been tainted by the pervasive culture of fear and favoritism. Confrontation would come, but first, he would gather intel, strike alliances, and build a case not just for himself, but for all those like him, those whose creativity had been stifled by a toxic corporate environment. Jake stood up, determination replacing the doubts that often chained him. It was time the world saw his designs as they were meant to be seen, bold and unapologetic. But as he moved forward, a new problem loomed. Could he trust Maya fully with his plans? That thought flooded back in, casting shadows over his newfound determination. Her encouragement was uplifting, yet he felt unease creeping in once more. The doubt transformed into strategic questioning. What would her role be in this unfolding narrative? Was she a friend? Or was she just another player in this ruthless game? With these dire thoughts reshaping the landscape of his aspirations, Jake realized he stood at yet another crucial turning point. To dwell in betrayal or to embrace alliances, to break through the barriers or to succumb to lingering fears, it was a decision that now hung heavy. Before him, the future remained uncertain, but one fact was clear. The time had come to face once more the shadowy corridors of Stratagem Designs, where he might finally reclaim his destiny or risk it all. Would he be prepared for the confrontation ahead? Or would another betrayal leave him shattered once more? Jake paced his small office, feeling the weight of his choices settle over him like a thick fog. He had chosen to engage, to step out of the shadows into a more defined outline, but the risks loomed large, each one whispering accusations of doubt. He inhaled sharply, forcing his mind to focus on Maya's words, a challenge and an invitation. Her belief in him felt like a lifeline, yet also a potential snare. Determined to make this shift, Jake thought about the layout of Stratagem Designs, the hierarchy that had kept so many of his colleagues silent. In his newfound resolve, he envisioned his approach as a careful architectural blueprint. First, he needed to solidify his alliance with Maya, gauging how deep her commitment ran. Jake opened a new document on his computer, repurposing his notebook's notes into a clearer strategy. He realized that spreadsheets and graphs were not just tools. They would become the very fabric of his plan. He began by compiling lists, not just potential allies, but also possible obstacles. Each name came attached with a handwritten note of their last interactions, their strengths, and the fractures that he suspected might influence their loyalty. He felt the adrenaline surge in him, transforming remnants of fear into an electric clarity. His fingers glided over the keyboard, translating swimming thoughts into a structured format that gave him back control. Venturing beyond mere ambition, The pulse of each clause intertwined with his intrinsic desire for a voice in the design world felt almost palpable. Here, he was no longer the artist sidelined by fears. He was a strategist. In the back of his mind, Charles S. words echoed again, understanding the labyrinth. It struck him that every individual in this company mapped their own route through fear and ambition. Perhaps Maya had her own reasons for resonating with the hidden struggles around them. With that thought, Jake composed a message to her, carefully curating his intentions. He needed to gauge her motivations to unearth whether she was indeed a potential ally, or just another stumbling block in his way. As he hit send, Jake felt exposed, as if he had just laid his plans bare before the universe. He let himself outline the next steps, gather evidence, analyze the contract further, and prepare his pitch not only for collaboration but for the confrontation that was surely looming. The potential for those hidden clauses to become his weapon against corporate betrayal propelled him forward. Just as he leaned back in his chair to synthesize the information into a cohesive strategy, an idea sparked. Deep dives into employee experiences. What if he could turn his design skills toward creating a visual representation of the hidden stories within the company? A project that could bring accountability into the light, enabling others to share their truths anonymously. It was a remarkable shift from mere self-preservation to an opportunity for communal rallying. But would they rally? The core question loomed: would fellow employees embrace this vulnerability, or would his plans lead to greater isolation? Nonetheless, Jake felt the tension in the air invigorate him. It wasn't just the struggle of reclaiming his identity, it was about amplifying the stories of those swallowed by the company's grind. That night, as Jake drafted a preliminary proposal for the project, excitement coursed through him, deliciously mixed with apprehension. He was carefully mapping his own journey while hoping others would join him in this underground movement, revealing their designs to seek liberation from the oppressive norms of their environment. But what Jake didn't anticipate was that he might face his first true challenge sooner than expected. Would Maya support him, or would she betray his trust at a crucial moment? And what would happen when the shadow of their employer came crashing down upon his budding ambitions? Jake took a decisive breath, reminding himself to keep pushing forward. The time had come to confront the labyrinth with both clarity and purpose, but he would need to act before the walls he sought to dismantle closed in around him. The murmur of latent threats hung heavily in the air. Jake awoke the next morning with a sudden clarity. The city outside his window whispered its hustle and bustle, yet his mind remained hyper-focused on the tasks ahead. He envisioned the employee project not merely as a tool for storytelling, but as a platform for empowerment. Every pixel drawn, every graph created, could potentially evoke a revelation, urging others to share their experiences of constriction and silence. The thought electrified him, driving him to action. That he brewed a strong cup of coffee and sat down at his desk once more, refining his proposal. Specifically, he devoted time to crafting the presentation aspect, knowing that effective communication could win over doubt and skepticism. Graphic representation was his strength, and he envisioned a poster that displayed employee experiences visually, their struggles laid bare and normalized. This could provide a jolt of catharsis to a stifled workplace. Still, doubt crept in, a nagging whisper wrapped around the edges of his thoughts. What if this endeavor was too ambitious? What if HR retaliated? Could he risk his career on this venture? He shook his head, ridding himself of the negative thoughts. The fear of failure no longer paralyzed him. It propelled him forward. As he honed the proposal throughout the day, he kept glancing at his phone, anticipating Maya's response. Each second that passed felt like an eternity. Would she stand alongside him? Would she understand the magnitude of this project? Finally, a ping signaled her reply, sending a sharp thrum through his chest. He opened her message eagerly. Her words were supportive, a chorus of encouragement flowing through her carefully chosen phrases. It felt like inhaling fresh, invigorating air after a long day spent in stale confines. Maya expressed genuine excitement about the initiative and offered to engage directly with colleagues, framing the project as a means to foster dialogue, the kind of dialogue that could shake the very foundation of stratagem designs. Gratitude washed over him, causing a smile to break through his previously furrowed brow. With her backing, the project felt more tangible, more attainable. Together, they began to sketch out an outline, brainstorming how to approach their coworkers sensitively and authentically. The individual pieces slowly transformed into a coherent strategy, incorporating various methods of communication, anonymity tools, and formats to encourage honesty without fear. Yet, as the excitement swelled with each new idea exchanged, a chilling thought lingered. How would HR react to this growing tide of information? The looming presence of corporate governance had always been a smothering cloak draped around their creative autonomy. Would this project be met with approval, or would it instigate retaliatory measures? Jake resolved to consider this carefully. He needed a backup plan. If they stirred the pot too aggressively, what safeguards could be implemented to protect those who shared their stories? He jotted down potential responses, mapping out contingencies in case of a backlash. Determination ignited within him. He was no longer simply reacting to his environment. He was shaping it, wielding his design skills as both a weapon and a shield. He envisioned the moment when they unveiled the initiative, an electric atmosphere poised on the brink of transformation. A few hours later, after refining their ideas, Maya abruptly shifted the conversation. "Jake," she said, her voice dropping, "we need to talk about Sam." He froze. Sam? The office's biggest gossip and the one person who thrived on chaos. Her influence could ignite a rumor mill or an outright sabotage of their efforts. What fate awaited them if she became aware of their plans? Jake's stomach clenched as uncertainty loomed once more. The stakes felt higher, and the labyrinth appeared more complex than ever. Faced with this precarious juncture, he sensed the weight of the decision before him. Would he create boundaries now, or proceed forward with full disclosure? The clock ticked, amplifying the urgency of the moment. How would they navigate this impending confrontation, and what would it reveal about trust and betrayal in the workplace? Jake sat back in his chair, thoughts racing. The mention of Sam sent ripples of anxiety through him. She was more than just a coworker. She was a well-versed manipulator who relished chaos. The vision he and Maya had crafted, meticulously planned to encourage honesty and openness, felt suddenly fragile in light of this new consideration. "We can't just ignore her influence," Maya insisted, her tone urgent. "If she catches wind of what we're doing, it could open floodgates of speculation. Are you prepared for that fallout?" He pondered her question, feeling the tension manifest in the muscles of his shoulders. There was a fine line to walk between vigilance and paranoia. While Sam's penchant for gossip was concerning, Jake also knew the importance of collective input. They had to move forward but remain cautious. "Let us strategize," he suggested, leaning forward. "We need to build a narrative before she can implant her version of the truth. If we frame this initiative as a project for empowerment, maybe we can maintain control over the message." Maya nodded, her expression congealing into determination. "What if we establish a core group of employees who support us? They can act as both advocates and protectors. The more people we have communicating the intention behind this project, the harder it will be for Sam to manipulate it." "Good idea," Jake replied, his mind rifling through potential allies. They needed individuals who not only understood their vision, but who also possessed a strong sense of ethics, qualities that Sam lacked. "Let us identify a few trusted coworkers, maybe someone from HR to help us understand their perspective too." "It might be risky to involve HR," Maya cautioned. "They might view it as an insurrectionary move." His heart raced with anticipation at the possibilities. He felt empowered, if not exhilarated. "I'd rather have an ally within HR than take a blind leap. If this is going to work, it needs the backing of management, or at least the ability to mitigate potential fallout." As they strategized, new ideas emerged. The excitement of creating something meaningful amid a sea of bureaucracy revitalized Jake's spirit. They discussed potential workshop formats that invoked creativity and encouraged research and storytelling methods that would gather unfiltered feedback in a safe environment. But with each optimistic idea, concern loomed like a black cloud. Could they truly harness the transformative power of shared narratives without exposing themselves to repercussions? Then there's the question of boundaries, Jake said, the weight of responsibility pressing against him. How transparent do we want to be? Are we prepared to hand over control if we involve more people? Maya's eyes lit with understanding. Freedom often comes at a price. We might have to compromise a little bit of our vision to ensure we don't lose it all. Determined not to halt the momentum, Jake decided to test the waters, creating a separate feedback platform first, allowing anonymity for submissions before they expanded to large group discussions. With trust as the foundation, they could lay the groundwork discreetly, preparing to eventually reveal their comprehensive project. But even as plans solidified, his heart raced at the potential for failure, ignited by the specter of Sam's sabotage lurking nearby. Jake needed to face this fear, not evade it. The afternoon slipped into evening, the office growing quiet, but his thoughts were a cacophony of possibilities, paranoia in constant dialogue with inspiration. He was on the precipice of a deep dive into uncharted territory, yet behind every brilliant idea lay the question: when would Sam strike? As he left the office, weary yet invigorated, Jake realized the next step was about more than just getting through Sam. It was about rallying the team, establishing nothing less than a revolution within the walls of Stratagem Designs. But how would he unveil this challenge to colleagues without triggering immediate suspicion? The stakes felt higher than ever. A confrontation with Sam is inevitable, and he wasn't sure how far the ripples from their tidal wave of change would spread. What hidden confrontations awaited him on this path? Would trust become a weapon, or would it expose vulnerabilities he had yet to acknowledge? Jake's resolve solidified as he walked home, the weight of anticipation clinging to him like a second skin. Every step felt like a countdown, each potential ally, a piece of a puzzle he was only beginning to comprehend. The thrill of strategizing with Maya was quickly overshadowed by the reality of impending confrontations. He unlocked his apartment door, halting momentarily at the threshold as doubt crept in, gnawing at the edges of his confidence. What if the elaborate framework they were developing crumbled? What if Sam's influence was too substantial to counter? He inhaled deeply, grounding himself. Staying paralyzed in fear wouldn't help him or the initiative. Jake settled on the couch, the soft fabric a stark contrast to the chaos swirling in his mind. He needed clarity. His fingers danced over the laptop keyboard, creating a list of potential allies who could help diffuse any rumors Sam might spread. As the names materialized, a project manager known for his integrity, a seasoned developer who had weathered office storms, each selection felt like another step toward empowerment. However, the specter of Sam's unpredictable nature loomed large. Would they be willing to risk their own comfort to stand against her? Would Jake's vision resonate with others, or would it be seen as a naive overreach? Each name written felt like a leap into the unknown. He glanced at the clock. Time was fleeting. He needed a meeting that instilled purpose, shaping a collective vision, rather than simply venting frustration at the status quo. The challenge wouldn't merely be to gather supporters. It would be about crafting a narrative that resonated deeply, a story everyone could own. "Let us create the fire before the storm hits," he murmured, motivation surging through him. The idea sparked like ignition, and with it, he began drafting an email to outline a gathering of interested colleagues under the guise of casually discussing workplace dynamics, a non-threatening invitation that would mask their true intentions. As he crafted the message, Jake's inner dialogue intensified. What kind of leader did he want to be? Vulnerability had to coexist with strength. His own experiences were informative, yet not overly revealing. He recognized the importance of authenticity. Showing that he was human would help create rapport. He hit send, his heart racing as he considered the risk of sharing ambitions amidst a web of potential betrayal. Would this decision foster a sense of trust or set him up for further manipulation? The thin line between transparency and exploitation loomed larger, beckoning him into a leadership role he wasn't sure he was ready for. The next day, before the scheduled gathering, Jake sat across from Maya in the break room, their eyes exchanging meaning before the words could take form. "Are we really prepared for whatever happens next?" she said. Concern etched in her features. Standing at the precipice of change, Jake felt an internal tremor. It dawned on him the real fight might not be about surviving Sam's sabotage, but igniting a shift within himself. Could he embrace this challenge, leveraging it as a means of growth, rather than retreating into fear? As the hours passed and colleagues began to arrive, the air buzzed with potential. Jake launched into introductions, sharing his vision, but even as enthusiasm surged, doubt flickered at the edges. They needed to establish trust with every word exchanged, every story divulged, but commingled with resolve sprang the realization that Sam would be watching. Every gathering, every shared narrative could be weaponized, spun into a distorted truth. As he locked eyes with Maya during a shared moment of camaraderie, a wave of unease washed over him. Would their efforts create a safe harbor or a battleground? How far would they have to go to safeguard their narrative before it was twisted by Sam's machinations? With the meeting underway, Jake felt exhilaration meld with fear. The time had come not just to face their adversary, but to confront the very core of who he was becoming in this challenging professional landscape. But somewhere, perhaps lurking in the recesses of the office, Sam was preparing to pounce. How would he respond when the truth he wielded became a double-edged sword? As Jake navigated the meeting, vibrant discussions and divergent opinions filled the room. With every colleague actively weighing in on the shared vision, his anxiety simmered beneath a veneer of enthusiasm. Yet, the realization that Sam could undermine their momentum lay heavy on his shoulders. He needed to anchor his leadership approach, to project unwavering confidence amidst uncertainty. He seized the moment to steer the conversation towards collaboration. "What we're building here is more than a contract or project," he began. His voice rang with a mixture of authority and vulnerability, a reflection of the duality he was striving to embody. "It's about reshaping our team's narrative. Each of you plays an important role in this." The room buzzed with energy as ideas expanded, taking shape under the collective brilliance of his colleagues. Some suggested practical strategies to enhance workflow. Others proposed ways to elevate morale. A palpable shift emerged. Jake felt their enthusiasm course through him like a current. Despite his trepidation, he started to appreciate the power of collective potential, a stark contrast to his earlier solitary struggles, but shadows lingered. Primed in parallel to their collaborative energy was the knowledge that Sam was likely eavesdropping, closely monitoring newfound alliances. Jake wondered how much time they had before she attempted a counteroffensive. As he encouraged colleagues to share personal narratives, he made a conscious choice to disclose a vulnerability of his own. "I've hesitated to speak truthfully about my ideas before because I feared alienation," he admitted. Silence hung for a moment before someone chimed in, awakening buried concerns that resonated through the room. The solidarity that formed demonstrated the strength of acknowledging imperfection, creating a binding thread of trust. Yet self-reflection was telling. While leading the charge could mitigate current challenges, there was an unsettling layer of personal conflict lurking in the background. What if his fears reasserted themselves, hindering progress? Would this newly forged trust survive when pressures mounted, especially when Sam unleashed her next strike? Jake caught Maya's gaze again, her supportive presence reminding him of his ultimate goal. He couldn't merely survive in this environment. He needed to evolve, to take charge of his narrative while sculpting theirs. As the meeting drew to a close, a lingering unease reared its head. Despite the fruitful exchanges, Jake realized they hadn't yet delved into how to shield this fledgling alliance from Sam's inevitable manipulations. This absence of strategy gnawed at him as he tucked away notes and prepared to exit the room. Suddenly, the tension snapped back as if propelled by an unseen force. The doors swung open and in strode Sam, her presence instantly chilling the air. She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. The room stiffened. All camaraderie evaporated as the unmistakable tension of impending confrontation settled in deeply. Jake felt adrenaline flood his system. This was the moment he had anticipated. Was he prepared to defend what he had begun, to safeguard the trust and narratives they built together? Sam addressed the assembly with languid confidence, her voice dripping with reproach. "I can't help but wonder what happens when disagreements arise," she said, her tone suggesting the calculated intent of a predator identifying its prey. The gauntlet had been thrown now, they were truly exposed. Jake felt a surge of defiance. As he prepared to confront her, an idea shifted the foundation of his resolve. Surviving this confrontation could be the crucible that molded him into the leader he aspired to be. But could he bend under the pressure of Sam's manufactured chaos? The room's atmosphere vibrated with uncertainty, and Jake's heart raced. Could he withstand the impending storm, and would it be enough to change the course of their fight? As Sam's words lingered in the air, Jake's mind raced through the implications. The challenge was not just in defending his ideas or the newfound teamwork. It was about maintaining his own integrity amidst an environment rife with insecurity and manipulation. He also sensed the tension in the room. As his colleagues awaited his response, eyes darting between him and Sam, the electric atmosphere crackling with anticipation. "Disagreements are the bedrock of growth," Jake stated firmly, steeling his resolve. He found his voice, allowing it to resonate with confidence tempered by an awareness of the stakes. What matters is how we handle those disagreements, how we choose to engage with one another while navigating our differences. He could feel the support from Maya and others bolstering him, grounding his thoughts. With every word he challenged Sam's attempt to incite fear, moving instead to reinforce trust. Instead of dividing, let us choose to collaborate. Together we can ensure that every perspective is respected, and real solutions emerge. As he spoke, Jake's heart pulsated with defiance. It was exhilarating and terrifying to confront her openly. He had once dreaded the idea of tension, but now he recognized it as a catalyst for change. He was not merely reacting to Sam. He was taking an active role in shaping the narrative of their work environment. But Sam was not one to back down easily. Her smile broadened, a clear indication that he had struck a nerve. Is that so? And what would you suggest we do when some voices seem louder than others, drowning out the consensus? The way she emphasized the word louder dripped with condescension. Jake felt the weight of the room shift again. He realized that this moment was not just about defending his position, but also about revealing a hidden strength he had often overlooked. The voice within urged him to rise beyond this immediate skirmish and think strategically about the long-term dynamics at play. That's the beauty of our structure. Every voice has a role, Jake replied, his voice cutting through the tension. We can implement a feedback mechanism, ensuring everyone has the opportunity to be heard. If we can listen to each other, we might just uncover insights we hadn't considered. He observed the nods of agreement from some colleagues, an acknowledgement that this was not just his battle but a shared concern. As he sustained eye contact with Sam, he could see her attempt to wrest control faltering momentarily. The realization began to settle in. The ground was shifting beneath them, and he had the power to lead this change, to cultivate a culture that thrived on respect rather than fear. However, beneath this flicker of confidence lay a deep-rooted fear. What if Sam orchestrated a sabotage that would undermine the fragile alliance Jake was nurturing? This was just one battle. The war was still being waged. Glancing at Maya again, he found a solid anchor in her unwavering gaze. The internal conflict surged. Thoughts of self-doubt whispered, what if he miscalculated? But as the room held its breath in expectancy, he recognized a pivotal truth: it was not enough to simply lead. He had to embody the standards he wished to establish. The confrontation reached a boiling point, and Sam's voice sliced through. Well then, let us see how sustainable your plan is when the pressure mounts. You'll thank me later for the reality check. With that, she turned on her heel, retreating but leaving a whirlwind of uncertainty behind. Jake's heart thundered in his chest. The confrontation had only sparked new questions regarding his leadership. He had stood firm this time, but was his strategy robust enough to endure Sam's next move? More importantly, would the seeds of collaboration he had sown continue to grow amidst impending challenges? He knew that the path to becoming the leader he aspired to be was fraught with hurdles. Yet, that realization also illuminated a flicker of determination to confront whatever came next with every ounce of resolve. He turned to his colleagues, who stared back at him, waiting for direction. Tension swirled, and Jake recognized that this was not just about survival. It was an opportunity to redefine what resilience looked like for them all. Together, they could either amplify their voices or allow fear to rein them in. Now he faced a daunting decision. How could he not only defend their vision but galvanize support to withstand Sam's inevitable counterstrike? In that moment, a thought crystallized. The time had come to face the storm head-on, to not just protect the budding trust but to transform it into something unshakable. Would he rally his team, or would he falter when the true test arrived? The following days felt tumultuous for Jake, as he navigated the aftermath of his confrontation with Sam. The atmosphere in the office shifted subtly. Each colleague whose gaze met his seemed to contain a silent inquiry. Was he truly capable of leading them through this storm? Despite the renewed camaraderie he had just fostered, the reality of Sam's threat loomed heavily. Jake found himself wrestling with the idea of leadership. It wasn't just about asserting his voice in moments of tension. It was about establishing a foundation built on authenticity and trust. As he settled into his desk each morning, he grappled with strategic ways to galvanize his team while keeping Sam at bay. She was still a formidable opponent, and he couldn't let the seeds of doubt sprout. He enlisted Maya for brainstorming sessions, her experience and perspective proving invaluable. Their discussions often felt electric, filled with ideas and queries that stretched both their thinking and resolve. It was during one of these evenings, surrounded by the remnants of takeout boxes and overflowing coffee cups, that Maya suggested focusing on real projects. "We need to showcase our unity," she urged, her voice steady. "Let us identify a cause worthy enough for everyone to rally behind." The thought resonated with Jake, who had always believed that collective efforts powered purpose. "A project that brings value to us and the community," he mused. "It can reinforce our commitment to collaboration." His pulse quickened at the prospect of creating something tangible, a physical manifestation of their unity that might further erase any divide Sam attempted to exploit. As the days passed, they proliferated ideas and meticulously crafted a project proposal that would highlight the team's strengths. They envisioned a mentorship program connecting them to local youth, which would not only engage their skills, but also demonstrate the team's commitment to the community's future. What was initially driven by necessity quickly morphed into a shared passion for something more significant than individual ambition. However, as the proposal neared completion, Jake received an unexpected email that sent a chill through him: an invitation to a formal presentation with upper management, led by Sam. His heart raced. This, he understood, was a strategic play. If she was circling back to counter his ideas, he needed to be prepared to defend their project. Jake summoned Maya and a few trusted colleagues for a strategy meeting. He emphasized the need for clarity in their vision, while preparing for potential critiques. "We're going to outline the metrics that demonstrate our commitment to collaboration," he instructed, framing their rallying cry around measurable impact. "This is not just a project, it's evidence of our transformation as a cohesive team." Each team member contributed brilliantly. The synergy sparked ideas beyond Jake's initial vision. Conversations flowed, and he felt a sense of pride swelling within him. It was more than just collaboration. They were evolving. Yet amidst this excitement, the gnawing anxiety about Sam's retaliation loomed heavier than ever. When the day of the presentation arrived, Jake stood before the board with a mix of resolve and apprehension. They had crafted something beautiful, a proposal reflecting not just objectives, but their collective journey. As he spoke, he could feel the weight of eyes upon him, many filled with curiosity, but Sam's were steely and calculating. She interrupted him mid-sentence, her tone dripping with skepticism. "Don't you think this is a bit ambitious, Jake? Can a handful of us truly drive change in such a broad landscape?" His heart plummeted momentarily at her cutting remark, but he took a breath, steadied by the voices of support that echoed in his mind. "Ambitious? Yes," he replied, his voice clear and unwavering. "But that's the point. We're not just trying to change perceptions, we're committed to changing lives, beginning with our own. If we can't dream it, how can we achieve it?" The board members looked intrigued, some nodding appreciatively. But Sam was unyielding, leaning forward, challenging him further. "Perhaps you're placing too much emphasis on camaraderie rather than results. What if this doesn't materialize? What's your fallback?" Jake clenched his fists under the table, the question reverberating in his mind. A fallback? It felt like accepting defeat before he'd even begun. Yet amid the rising tension, a notion surfaced. What if this wasn't merely about defending his plan? What if it was about proving that their vision was not an isolated dream, but a vibrant collective promise? And then it struck him. "If our plans falter, we will learn from it and grow together." The words resonated, stirring something that felt alive among his colleagues. Jake realized he wasn't just presenting statistics, he was presenting their journey, their potential, and their resilience. As the meeting concluded, he knew he had thrown himself into the fray. Now they would have to rally together, not just against Sam's skepticism, but to transform their vision into reality. But even as he felt the momentum building, uncertainty simmered. Could they withstand Sam's looming influence as she plotted her next move? As Jake left the room, adrenaline coursing through him, he recognized the journey wasn't just about defending a singular idea, it was about forging their narrative as a formidable unit against the challenges ahead. What he hadn't anticipated was how much he would have to confront his own insecurities in the process. He shut his laptop with a newfound determination. This was bigger than implementing a successful project. It was about fortifying their foundation amid anticipatory chaos. Would they continue to thrive together? Or would he shatter under the pressure? leaving them vulnerable to Sam's next scheme? Jake stood at the edge of his cubicle, anticipation thrumming in the air around him. The following weeks had been transformative, both for his team and for himself. The mentorship program they had proposed was gaining traction. Colleagues who once hovered at the sidelines were now vocal advocates, sharing ideas and showing an eagerness to participate. It felt as if the echoes of doubt from earlier months were being drowned out by the symphony of collaboration they had cultivated as the team prepared for the launch of the mentorship initiative. Jake marveled at how far they had come. No longer merely a conveyor of designs and ideas in a sterile office, he had shaped himself into a leader, one who inspired trust, who galvanized a collective vision into motion. The presentation meeting with upper management had shifted the narrative of Stratagem Designs, showcasing not only their commitment to change, but revealing the true power of teamwork. He felt a sense of pride swell in his chest. Instead of being a mere cog in the corporate machine, he was pushing it forward, demonstrating that creativity thrives on collaboration. Yet, uncertainty loomed as always. Sam, with her penchant for manipulation, remained a pressing concern. After their intense interaction during the presentation, Jake sensed that she would not retreat quietly. He anticipated her next move, aware that undermining him and the program could be her primary objective. Just days before the mentorship program's official launch, Jake received an unsettling email from Sam. She requested a meeting with upper management to discuss performance indicators and potential roadblocks regarding the initiative. Doubt spiraled through him, yet he quickly refocused his energy, channeling the lessons he'd learned over the past weeks. Jake gathered his allies Maya and a few trusted colleagues in a makeshift war room away from the prying eyes of the corporate elite. They brainstormed and prepared for the meeting, meticulously documenting success metrics and case studies from other companies that had thrived through mentorship programs. He felt a palpable shift in energy, a shared reverberation of purpose among them. Here was a team bonded by a common goal, unyielding in the face of potential adversity. The day of the meeting arrived, and as he entered the conference room, Jake's nerves buzzed with adrenaline. He had practiced his pitch and envisioned addressing each of Sam's concerns with clarity and confidence. This was no longer a matter of survival, it was an opportunity to validate their collective effort and cement a new standard at Stratagem Designs. Sam launched into her criticisms almost immediately. "Let us not beat around the bush, Jake. Are you sure your team is equipped to handle the complexities of managing mentorship? It's a big undertaking for a small group." Jake took a breath, steadying himself. He knew he had the support of his colleagues behind him. "Absolutely, Sam. This mentorship program is designed to foster growth not only in our younger employees, but also to enhance collaboration across the board. It's about creating an inclusive environment where everyone's voice holds weight." The room buzzed with interest. The executives leaned in slightly intrigued. Jake pressed on, revealing metrics and case studies that demonstrated mentorship's success across the industry. With each statistic, each example, he could feel their collective belief solidifying, dispelling the shadows of doubt. Sam's disapproval persisted, but Jake recognized it for what it was: a desperate attempt to cling to her power. This shift in paradigm wasn't about silencing her. It was about revealing her lack of vision. His colleagues chimed in with their own insights, adding passionate anecdotes about the potential benefits they stood to gain. By the end of the meeting, he had not just defended the initiative, he had ignited a fervor across the table. As they stepped out of the conference room and into the bustle of the office, an exhilarating sense of accomplishment fell over him. The mentorship program was officially greenlit, an ambulance of fresh ideas on its way to the organization. Jake had come to embody his own metamorphosis, no longer bound by the shackles of self-doubt. He emerged with confidence and clarity of purpose. The looming presence of Sam began to feel more manageable. Her threats no longer paralyzed him. He understood that he could steer the narrative, harness the collective capabilities around him, and transform not only his position but the culture at Stratagem Designs as well. Jake headed home that evening, greeted by the warmth of his loving family. As he sat down for dinner, he reflected on the metamorphosis he had undergone. The once fractured pieces of himself's self-worth, ambition, and integrity had fused into a clear vision and recognized competence. He had proven to himself that every challenge was not a defeat looming on the horizon, but rather an opportunity to demonstrate resilience and growth. As he tucked his children into bed that night, Jake felt an overwhelming sense of pride. He was no longer just a designer in a corporate landscape that had once felt intolerable. He was an architect of change. Each of his designs had transferred into broader aspirations, a balance of personal fulfillment and professional excellence. And with a notable achievement finally under his belt, there was no doubt he would continue to strive for greater heights. Do not wait even one more second. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. Comment your reactions and theories about this satisfying conclusion. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this triumphant transformation. You need to subscribe now. This is the moment to show your support for more inspiring tales of personal overcoming.